It may be the most daring crime in American history. A man calling himself D.B. Cooper hijacked a plane, demanded $200,000 in cash plus 4 parachutes, and then he jumped off the plane somewhere in the mountains of Washington state. Well, a bit of the money eventually turned up, but D.B. Cooper never did. Now Paul Boyd says 2 amateur investigators think they found him.
He called himself D.B. Cooper, and he was responsible for one of the most daring crimes in American history. In 1971, he parachuted 10,000 feet from a hijacked jetliner with a $200,000 ransom and vanished, never to be seen again.
This guy got away with 200 grand, kind of stuck it to the man, and really didn't hurt anybody, and he did it in a dramatic way.
D.B. Cooper became part of American folklore, and his story was made into a 1981 movie starring Treat Williams. For the past 7 years, Matt Myers and Dan Dvorak have been investigating the 36-year-old mystery. They say D.B. Cooper is alive and well, and they now claim to know who he is.
His name kept on popping up.
This man, they say, is D.B. Cooper. His real name is Teddy Mayfield, and Inside Edition caught up with him near Portland, Oregon, where he's been a pilot and world champion parachute jumper for over 40 years.
They said, well, we think you're D.B. Cooper. In fact, we know you're D.B. Cooper. And I said, well, don't think the profile fits, my good man.
Here's the 1971 FBI sketch of D.B. Cooper next to Teddy Mayfield today.
I could make the jump, but I don't think I'm smart enough to do the planning that this guy did.
But the amateur investigators say that in 1971, Mayfield was on probation for an armed robbery conviction, and they say he was broke and desperate.
A year and a half later, he's living on 36 acres with a private airport, starting a skydiving school.
Mayfield told us he knew he'd be a prime suspect because of his skydiving background and criminal record, but he says he has an airtight alibi. On the night of the hijacking, he offered to help catch D.B. Cooper and made a telephone call to this man, Ralph Himmelsbach, who was the FBI agent in charge of the case.
He volunteered to help any way he could. He said, I know you guys are going to be looking for skydivers, and he said, I'll help any way that I can. And I asked him what he thought about it, and he said, the guy's got to be nuts.
Because of that phone call, the FBI ruled out Mayfield as a suspect. But the new investigators say that's just too much of a coincidence. They say the phone call was a ruse to throw off the FBI, and it was made 2 hours after Cooper had jumped from the plane.
And he could have walked to a car, walked to a telephone. It's funny how he didn't call while the hijacker was still on the plane. But yet he calls 2 hours later and says, I don't want you to think I'm the hijacker.
Many believe D.B. Cooper died in the jump, particularly after almost $6,000 from the ransom was found decomposing in the wilderness 9 years later. No trace of Cooper has ever been found, and the FBI says it's still an open investigation. Now Myers and Dvorak plan to write a book about their findings, but Teddy Mayfield is making a charge of his own against them.
And they said, what would you like to be, D.B. Cooper? And we can sell more books.
We never, ever, ever asked him to be Cooper. That's a blatant lie.
It's just another twist in the mystery of D.B. Cooper, one of America's most daring criminals.
I am not D.B. Cooper.
And Mayfield is not the first to be ID'd as perhaps being D.B. Cooper. At least 2 other people have been named as contenders as well.